I will check my share screen.
So now you can share.
Okay. That okay?
Fine, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, friends. I'm Dr. Mangesh Pate, our beloved National President and Secretary General. Our National President and Secretary General will be joining in a short while. We'll start meeting in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, JK. Good evening, Dinesh.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, both of you. Good evening, Pankaj sir.
Good evening, Dr. Pankaj. Good evening, TN, Ravi Shankar, Mohan sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Mangesh.
Good evening, good evening.
जला देते ऊपर वाली बंद कर दे
I'm just waiting for National President. He's joining in a couple of minutes, please.
Okay, sir.
Dr. Setia, sir, good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Mangesh Pante.
Good evening, good evening. Yeah. Our National President and Secretary General have joined. Welcome, sir.
Welcome, welcome.
Shall we go ahead, start the webinar, sir?
Yes,
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yogesh.
So, friends, again, this Friday we are here with the very important web discussion on the documentation in the hospital practice. If you recall, last webinar we had communication skills in the hospital practice. That way, communication and documentation in the hospital practice, they go hand in hand, and both are equally important. Somehow, in spite of doing a great job, sometimes because of some reasons, we fail in documenting certain things, and that can be a problem for us. And this era of a consumerism, it is very important for all of us to know what exactly documentation is and to know why documentation is necessary. So for that, today's webinar we are conducting. I will request our beloved National President, Dr. Jayalal sir, to give his presidential address.
Yes, we can. Thakre and this one, Yogesh. Thank you very much, our beloved the HSG, Dr. J.S. Lile, the Secretary of our Hospital Board of India, Dr. Mangesh Patel, the distinguished speakers of this day, our good friend Dr. Jay Krishnan, the Secretary of the IMA Professional Protection Scheme, Dr. Dinesh Thakre, and the Chairman of our Medical Legal Cell, and all other distinguished leaders. I am able to see the AMS Chairman, Dr. Srihari Rao, CGP Past Secretary, and distinguished members. We are extremely happy to this continuation of this program on the Hospital Board of India. On behalf of the headquarters, we wish all the best for our chairman of the hospital board, as he is convalescing and is now all right. Now he's getting leave. I'm so happy that series of events, talk, lectures are being planned in the way it is been going to be beneficial for the practitioners of our hospitals, right from the communication skills, safety of the doctors, and also now you are going to make it very important things on the documentation. So this is going to be play a major role in the today's era of the consumerism. Whatever is being documented is going to be the evidence for us to get rid of all our issues. A lot of things we are talking on this, right from the concern, right from how we are going to make the notes, main criteria on the documentation, what are the way, and when we want to make a corrections on what you have made on the document and how to do that, what are the time and the signature, and the quality, the qualification of the doctor which has to be implemented. So all these smaller issues are there on the documentation. Not only just what we are writing, we have to write appropriately. When we are today, we had a tribunal when we are discussing certain things. When we see our doctors, not only on the case sheet, in all important document also, we do the corrections just like that, overwriting on that, without putting the correction adequately authenticating. So all that will not be go in the court of evidence, it will not be there. So we should know not only what to write, but we should also know how to write that and how to make it an appropriate thing. So all these components, I am sure that the very expert people who has a very rich knowledge on the both hospital, who has dealt with many cases of the Consumer Protection Act, Dr. Jay Krishnan and when Dinesh Thakre will be able to give us with examples. I'm sure this will be one of the very important session for all of us, the hospital owners. So I wish all the best and thank you very much for this opportunity. And we are looking forward to have this publication. This comes as a document. Dr. Mangesh Pandey is very good in documenting things. He has what he has brought out, like the oxygen need. So similarly, the documentation guidelines can be published as a report or a draft of the hospital board. So thank you very much, sir, for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, President, sir. We definitely will follow your instructions and come out with these guidelines very soon, sir. I request our Secretary General, Dr. Lele, sir, for his address, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mangesh. Respected National President, Professor Dr. Jayalal, Chairman HBI, Dr. Sharad Agrawal, Mangesh Pate, our HBI Secretary, and our two distinguished, renowned, and speakers, Dr. Jaykishan, because I remember any documentation, and we used to request Jaykishan to prepare. So similarly, he and Dinesh Thakre is going to give the today's talk on the documentation portion. One thing if you recollect, whenever there was a medical legal talk or any expert talking, even last time when we had Dr. Harish Shetty talking about us in communication skills, what appears in black and white on paper, it stands good in the court of law. That is a very kind of a dictum everybody will tell. So we always need to have a proper documentation, proper treatment. Whatever you are giving it, you are giving correct treatment. You have taken second opinion. You have taken proper investigations and all those things just by ordering or telling verbally to the staff and not getting it done is also very bad. So similarly, the documentation, when you get the reports, put it on a paper and see that, yes, you have seen that reporting. That is very important. So the documentation carries a very high amount of the importance to all of us, especially in the field of this disease. Today's issue of the medical legal and the cases where day by day are increasing. So another important issue about the documentation is what you have written down. The second doctor who is whenever a second opinion is taken, he would also go through that and see what has been written, what has been discussed, what has been given treatment. So everybody knows and transparency will be maintained properly. So the documentation as the topic of the day is very important, and I'm sure both the speakers will give a great justice to it. And as Mangesh has put it, yes, definitely some guidelines or some important paper can be written down, send everybody to all our distinguished members and put it on our website. So all the best to the speakers and the topic, and Mangesh, continue the great work, and newer and newer topics would attract our HBI membership and all the hospital owners. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk. All the best. Over to you, Mangesh.
Thank you, Secretary General, sir. So friends, we straight away go for today's webinar. This topic of a documentation is extremely important. As we all know, some of us have faced some certain difficulties when documentations were incomplete. Various reasons, whatever we see, why documentations remain incomplete. Those all things we will try to cover in this webinar. So we have divided this into two parts. Number one is which documentation, and number two is why documentation is necessary. I request all of you, whichever questions, if at all you have, you can put it in the chat box or send it to me on my personal WhatsApp. We'll be at the end of this webinar, we'll be asking the speakers all these questions. Thank you. So first I request Dr. Jayakrishnan for his talk on the documentation, which all documentations are necessary during the hospital practice. Dr. Jayakrishnan, please.
Good evening, respected President Dr. Jayesh Lele, Secretary President Dr. Jayalal, Secretary Dr. Jayesh Lele, Secretary of Hospital Board of India, Dr. Mangesh Pate, Chairman of Medical Legal Cell, Dr. Ravi Shankar, Vice Chairman and Co-Speaker, Dr. Dinesh Thakre, other senior members and friends who are present here. First of all, I congratulate Hospital Board of India for organizing such events continuously, especially helping all the hospitals to strive during the era of COVID. There were a lot of initiatives taken by the Hospital Board of India, and at the secretaryship, Dr. Mangesh Pate, who is a a versatile man with a multifaceted talent and activities. He is doing a lot of work both for the Hospital Board of India and also for the National IMA. And our National President and Secretary General had led a struggle recently regarding hospital violence, and the message was clear. And the Prime Minister even attended the Doctors' Day celebration at the headquarters due to the constant pressure and constant work put forward by the National President and National Secretary General. Congratulations to both of them. Going to today's topic, documentation is one of the sheet anchors of any of the medical practice. Without documentation, there is no medical practice. There is no justification regarding your complaints, and you cannot stand in the court of law. So appropriate documentation is very important. And my role is here to say which all documents are required in hospital practice, and the legal requirements, the legal nuisance of these things will be described by Dr. Dinesh Thackeray following my talk. I will go to the screen share. I hope everybody is able to see my screen. So, documentation in medical practice. Whenever we see documentation, as we have told, as already told by National President and Dr. Mangesh Pate, each and every aspect of the documentation in hospital practice is very important. What we usually see is some of the areas we usually neglect. One of the things is outpatient file. Many of the hospitals hand over the outpatient file to the patients. Many of us just scribble down something in the outpatient file. None of the details will be entered. So the outpatient file is one of the neglected areas of documentation. So first of all, you make sure that your handwriting is legible, because usually the outpatient file is one of the first evidence that you of the encounter with the patient and what is your impression regarding the patient. So that outpatient file should be comprehensive, and the handwriting should be legible. And all the basic things like vital parameters, weight, temperature, etc. should be specifically described in the outpatient file. And also the date and time of consultation, everything should be mentioned. And there should be always short clinical notes, and relevant investigations also should be recorded in the outpatient records. Usually we omit, because patient will show a lot of investigation, but nothing will be recorded there. Especially if it's a gynecology, all those things, post-operative patients, etc. If the outpatient file is not complete, lot of litigations occur. For example, suppose after hysterectomy, a patient has a urinary leak, and she may be, she might not have complained of the urinary leak or any complaints for the first visit or second visit, or during the first visit already she might have complained, and she should have, the doctor might have advised observation for 2 weeks with some antibiotics and all. But these will not be recorded. If it is not recorded in the outpatient file, ultimately when they file a case, they will tell that they have pointed out this fact to the doctor many times, but they have neglected and they have not suggested any appropriate treatment. So regarding each encounter with the patient, you should have short clinical notes, and also note down relevant investigations. If they have done some investigation outside, the relevant finding of the investigation also should be mentioned in the OP records. This is very important. And another thing is that don't hand over the outpatient file to the patient or relatives. It should be kept in the hospital, because in most of the cases, we know that regarding our patients, almost 70% will be outpatients and only 30% will be inpatients. So if the outpatient files are handed over to the patients, then we are losing the documents related to the patient in our institution in 70% of the cases. So that's also very important. And another important area is IP records. In the IP records, some of the areas are very important. One thing is there should be a facing page with relevant personal and short medical data. That facing sheet itself should tell what is the relevant name, address, MRD number, then what is the provisional diagnosis. All those things should be there in the facing sheet. And there should be a general and systemic examination notes, because that's very important. Usually there will be a column for general and systemic examination in many of the IP records, but it may not be filled. To fill up the general and systemic examination is also very important. Suppose when you are doing undergoing an ENT procedure and the patient has torrential bleeding at that particular time, and subsequently it was found that patient is having some bleeding disorder, etc. Then if this general and systemic examination column is done vacant, you will be held responsible, because it will be taken that you have not done a general and systemic examination, and that is why you have failed to identify such a thing. So this column should be always filled. Something you can fill: the CVS, abnormality detected, abdomen zone, bowel zone plus, air entry equal. All those things you can just write. Another thing is the specific clinical data should be specifically mentioned. If it's a neurology case, what is the conscious level, what is the gait, what is the motor system, sensory system. Similarly, if it's a general surgical case, abdomen, or whichever area you have, that specific clinical data should be always be there. You never just write the diagnosis alone. It's very common that when you see a patient, you examine abdomen, find that there is right iliac fossa tenderness. Then you send for ultrasound, find that there is some appendicitis. And usually, sometimes you just write acute appendicitis, ultrasound acute appendicitis. That is not sufficient. You have to write all the specific clinical data regarding that, and also the investigation details. The investigations might be done in the same institution, or it may be done outside, but it should be noted down. If you note down, then only you can prove that you have seen the investigation and noted the relevant points here. Otherwise, even if you have sent for investigation, there may not be any evidence that you have revisited the investigation and seen what is there in the investigation details. And another important area is daily progress notes, dated and timed. The daily progress notes, usually what we do is, we may be, suppose one patient is lying in the hospital for 10 days, first day we will write the patient condition, etc. in the daily progress note. Next day onwards, we will, within normal limits, nothing special, all these things you will write. That is not correct. You should always write daily progress notes. What is the findings today? And even if it's normal, you have to make a short daily progress notes. And it should be always dated and typed. And another area is nurses' records, because there are two main components in the inpatient care. One is doctor's care and another is nurses. So the details regarding the nurses' nursing care will be available in the nurses' records. And it is very important that all the patient's vitals, conditions, what all nursing care provided, who all consultants saw, and what are the, at what time patient was shifted from one station to another station, at what time patient was shifted to this station to another station, when the patient was decided to discharge, when the patient asked to go to another institution, when was the reference made. All these things should be mentioned in the nurses' records. Another important thing you should manage is there should be complete matching of the doctor's progress notes and nurses' records. Sometimes what happens is whenever some complaints, litigation, everything come, immediately we go and correct doctor's records or operation notes, etc. But the nurses' records may be remaining like that only. Then what happens is there will be mismatch between the doctor's records and nurses' records, and we will fail in our litigation. So the nurses' records is very important, and it should exactly match with what all things have been mentioned in our progress notes and other details. Another important area is the drug administration chart. It's a common practice that we write all the medicines, change of medicines, etc. in the doctor's progress notes itself. It's a very, very common practice. I think it's not in the current circumstances, it is not advisable. Actually, you should have a separate drug administration chart. That drug administration chart should contain appropriate columns so that the medicines, the dosage, the frequency, the route of administration, etc. can be specifically mentioned. These also should be signed by the doctor under the drug administration chart. And also, it is ideal that the drugs should be written preferably in capitals. The NABH standards mandates that all the drugs should be mentioned in capitals, without any abbreviations or without any running letters. So ideally, the drug administration should be in capitals, and if any drug is stopped at a particular day, that should be mentioned. And the allergy test done, everything should be specific. Test dose done, everything should be specifically mentioned. And another area is consents. Consent is one of the important areas of our medical practice, and we should have. We should not shy away from taking consent. We should have a general consent whenever a patient is admitted to the institution, or whenever the patient is undergoing some procedure. This general consent will say that I am willing to get admitted in this hospital under so and so. I am willing to undergo any of the investigation prescribed by him. I am willing to take up the medications, injections, or any of the procedures which are taken up by him. And also, I understand that I have to pay the amount specified by the hospital, and I have to obey the hospital rules, etc. Such a general consent should be taken in all the cases. And another important thing is informed consents. Informed consent is one of the sheet anchors of medical practice. Without the consent of the patient, you cannot do anything. And only if the patient cannot give consent, you can take the consent of legal heirs. That should be either the parents or wife, husband, son, daughter, etc. So you cannot take consent from a friend or somebody who is not related to the patient. So the informed consent should be from the patient is mandatory. There are situations in which we fail to take informed consent from the patient. For example, change of decision at the time of surgery. When we are doing some surgery, for example, cesarean section, and we want to do a hysterectomy also, immediately what we do is we take the consent. One nurse will go to the theater, call anybody related to this patient is here, somebody will come, you get sign from that hysterectomy is also being done. Finally, if the patient says that I was not aware of the hysterectomy, I was not given any consent for hysterectomy, then you will fail, because without the patient consent, especially regarding removing of an organ, that consent is absolutely mandatory. And another thing is that the informed consent should be taken in the language known to the patient. You cannot say that suppose vaginal hysterectomy, you usually write VH, posted for VH under spinal or something. And even in the consent, it may be usually a printed form. In that you will write the patient is undergoing VH. Actually, there was an instance in Kerala. A nurse's mother was treated for breast swelling, which turned out to be CS stomach, and a mastectomy was done for this patient. And in that consent form was taken only in English, and in that it was written only that mastectomy. Subsequently, nurse gave a complaint that my father and mother was not informed of the surgery. A specific informed consent was not taken, and whatever was written and taken were not aware to them, because they don't knew English and they did not know what is mastectomy. So finally, court held that because the consent was not specifically taken in the language known to them, and it was taken only in the medical terms only, that consent is not valid. So you have to, that informed consent should be ideally handwritten. A standard printed form is not always advisable, and that is very important that you have to take informed consent for all procedures, all invasive procedures. except in such situations which can be done under implied consent. And special consent is also very important. We have to take consent in many situations. One is when a patient is dangerously ill, you have to make them understand that patient is dangerously ill. Another situation is when the patient is going to be ventilated, when the patient is going to undergo some procedure like lumbar puncture or something, endoscopy, etc. And another important thing is we usually restrain a patient inside the intensive care units in the wards. But it should be mandatory that for restraining a patient, you have to take a consent. The restraint can be of two types. One is physical restraint and another is pharmacological restraint. And both for both the restraints, you have to take special consents. That complications of restraint like dislocations, injuries, and respiratory depressions, all those things have to be mentioned in the restraint consent. So each and every aspects of practice, any intervention has to be under consent only. Another important area is monitoring charts. Usually our case sheets will be containing a standard pulse temperature, pulse respiration and BP chart. And we usually write everything in these charts only. But it is not appropriate. We can have a standard TPR and BP chart, but according to the condition of the patient, if it's a neurological condition, a neuro observation chart. If it's admitted for diabetes control, there should be a blood sugar chart. If it's admitted for some renal disorder, then you should have a renal chart. So according to the condition in which patient is admitted, there should be special monitoring charts tailored to that particular condition. Then only it can be, especially it can be approved. Another area is operation notes and procedure note with relevant findings. We see a lot of lacking in writing operation notes. Operation notes, or whether it's operation or some invasive procedure, you have to have appropriate notes on the operation or procedure. And it should contain all the relevant findings. What was the type of position? What was the position? What was the anesthesia? What was the incision? What was the finding? Whether hemostasis was attained? Whether anything was put inside, any implants or any drain or something, and how was it closed, whether dressing, everything is done, whether it was in for biopsy. All these details should be very well described in that operation notes. And especially we see a lot of operation notes with abbreviations, without any description of all those all those steps of the procedures and all. So it's mandatory that all the steps should be described. Even we fail in litigations if the procedures are not properly described. For example, there are instances where there is failed sterilization, failed tubectomy operations. Compensation was awarded just because what type of operation was not described, what procedure was done. It was whether ligation or it was introduction of ring or something. The procedure was not properly mentioned, so compensation was awarded. So you have to describe the procedure, what procedure you have done. And another, we may feel that some of the things are not important, but may be important at particular time. For example, dietary advice. Dietary advice should be always be mentioned because it's a part of treatment. So what type of diet they have to take, whether it's a sugar-free diet, renal diet, whether it's a protein-free diet. So what type of high protein diet? So that dietary advice should be always there. Then another area is special advices. For example, if the patient has done undergone an orthopedic surgery and he is advised not to bear weight, then in every day you have to mention patient not to bear weight. In the discharge summary also in capital letters you have to write patient not to bear weight till 2 months or 3 months, etc. Use such and such a walking aid or something, use such a brace or something. All these things you have to write. Otherwise what will happen is, if there is an implant failure, suppose the patient walks and the implant breaks, and they will come and complain that implant broke due to the improper surgery or improper implant, etc. Then you will just tell that we have specifically told them not to walk, but he has walked, that is why it has failed. But then if there is no special instruction that he has not to weight bear, you will fail because you have not instructed him to not to weight bear. So that's the issue. Another thing is copies of reference letters and discharge cards, everything. Whenever a patient is referred to another center, or whenever a patient is discharged, etc., then the copies should be kept in your record also, because otherwise you cannot prove that the patient was appropriately referred at the appropriate time to the appropriate center with such and such facilities, with accompaniment of nurses or doctors, etc. All those things should be there, and those should be available in the records also. And also when the patient is discharged, copy of the discharge summary should be there. Then only you will come to know that what all things have written in the discharge card, etc. So this is also very important. And always try to mention the final diagnosis. If the patient is under evaluation, don't write that diagnosis as final diagnosis. Or suppose any symptom or sign under evaluation should not be written as final diagnosis. You can write under evaluation. For example, if the patient is having some pathological fracture of a particular vertebra, and a patient is under evaluation for multiple myeloma, various things, and we have sent for bone biopsy, etc. Then don't write Cori multiple myeloma. You can just write pathological fracture vertebra under evaluation. Because there was one instance in one of the cases in Kerala. Actually, one child was admitted with pyrexia of unknown origin to one of the larger hospitals. The pediatrician admitted the patient, and patient had lymphadenopathy, all those things. He suspected a leukemia. Then he sent to the surgeon to take a lymph node biopsy. Surgeon took the lymph node biopsy, and the pediatrician called the pathology center. What is the diagnosis? The pathology center told that it looks like leukemia. So immediately the doctor referred the patient to one of the government medical colleges with a diagnosis of leukemia. Finally, they went to the medical college when lot of evaluation, and find that it was found out that it was only some infectious mononucleosis or some, and there was no leukemia. Then the father and mother complained to the consumer forum that they were terrorized by the wrong attitude of the doctor, and they were terrorized by the diagnosis of leukemia, which was not correct. And when the case came to the court, actually, when the patient was referred to that institution, the biopsy report, official biopsy report, was not available. It came only after 2 to 3 days. So the court held that without a specific diagnosis, they have referred the patient as leukemia, and the complaint of terrorizing them with a wrong diagnosis was correct, and a compensation of 50,000 was given. So never mention such provisional diagnosis as important diagnosis. You can write it as under evaluation. And always in the discharge summary, you should have short clinical summary, all the relevant investigations, all the summary of clinical course and procedures, and when to review and when to attend emergency care, etc. If the patient has some issues, how to attend emergency care, everything should be mentioned in the discharge summary. Another thing is that whenever a patient dies, it should be mandatory that you should prepare a death summary and copy of the death certificate of the patient also to be kept in the case sheet. Because subsequently, after some years, 3 years, 4 years, etc., some case comes, you may not be remembering the exact circumstances of death if you have not prepared an appropriate death summary and kept it in the file. So it should be mandatory that always you keep a death summary, so that, and even in many cases, patients will ask for a death summary. Even now, in the COVID era also, lot of people are coming and asking about death summary, because now there is a news that some compensation will be awarded to all COVID deaths. So now hospitals are flooding with requests that they should get a death summary indicating that it's a COVID, treated for COVID. Another area is certificates. Whenever you get certificates, always be cautious. Don't alter facts. Don't try to alter. Even you may be trying to help the patient, But once after some time, these may not come, and you may be there may be allegation that you have given a false certificate. Don't issue certificates without seeing the patient. It's also a common thing. The patient might be in jail or might have done a criminal offense, and they may be asking for a certificate that he was under treatment for such and sick for 2 weeks. You may be issuing a certificate. Finally, you will be also held for conspiring with that criminal case if you have issued a false certificate. So don't issue certificates without seeing the patient. Don't issue certificates commenting on others' treatment. That's also very important, especially in some of the fields like ophthalmology, etc. The others may be giving certificates commenting on the others' treatment. That's also inappropriate. You are another professional is not an appropriate person to weigh another colleague's treatment. So never issue such certificates. And these are some of the important aspects of documentation, whether it's a physical document or whether it's an electronic document. Now there is a trend towards electronic documentation. So completion of this area, I would just like to mention few points regarding electronic health data also. Now even the government is going with a new project that is called NDHM, National Digital Health Mission, that all the health data of all the people in the country will be brought into a single platform. That is called the National Digital Health Mission. So this will contain many components. One is the personal health identifier, that each of the patients will have a universal health ID. If you see your COVID vaccination certificate, if you have given your Aadhaar number, you can see that there is a UHID also allotted to you. That is your UHID, Universal Health ID or Personal Health Identifier. Another is, that is very important. Another thing is health locker. All the relevant information regarding you will be stored in an appropriate health locker in that platform. That is called the health locker. Then another term which is used is the personal health record. So personal health record is an electronic record of health related information on an individual that conforms to nationally recognized interoperability standards, and that can be drawn from multiple sources while being managed, shared and controlled by the individual. That means if I am going to a hospital, my health records are maintained in that hospital in a particular format that can be taken up into the general platform and can be shared to any other institution where he is seeking treatment. That is called the personal health record. Another thing is electronic medical records and electronic health records. The difference between electronic medical record and electronic health record is that electronic medical record is the medical health related information of an individual which is created, gathered, managed and consulted by the doctor or staff within one healthcare organization. If it's inside a particular hospital or particular institution or particular clinic. But electronic health record is the electronic health record of the same person, the same information, which is made into an interoperability standard so that it can be accessed by any of the institution in any of the healthcare organizations. And it's very important that any of the electronic health records, there should be a consent manager. Now we take all the consents in the physical format. Patient will sign, relatives, witness, everything will sign in the consents. But it's very important that the electronic system of consent manager, either using fingerprints or retina identification, like what we are doing in the Aadhaar thing, should be there. And another thing is data exchange, how the data can be exchanged between various institutions and for research purposes. All this will be administered by the National Digital Health Mission. This is a mission by Government of India. The blueprint is already published. And IMA has even made an opinion on the National Digital Health Mission. We have found out some reservations, but generally we have supported it except for many of the reservations. Another area is telemedicine. Telemedicine is delivery and facilitation of health and related services, including medical care, provider and patient education, using digital communication technologies. So now there is a regulation by the Medical Council of India, which is published in March 2020 regarding telemedicine. And these consultations can be through the text, chat, email, audio, video, etc. These are all approved. Actually, that will require some training and a certification by the individuals, but that certification mandate is taken away for the COVID period until the COVID pandemic is over. So without the certification itself, now any of the medical practitioners can do telemedicine practice. And another important thing is that regarding telemedicine, you have to keep records of your consultation, either through text, chat, email, audio, or video. All these should be stored and it should be reproducible if to the authorities. That is very important. Another thing is, another area is e-pharmacy. Actually, now e-pharmacy is not legal in India because the prescription should be by the registered practitioner. There is no foolproof method now to check whether it was a authorized prescription by the registered medical practitioner. But already a draft e-pharmacy rules has been drafted in 2018, but it is not still approved. So in that, there are options for electronic prescriptions, authorization of prescriptions, and sale by way of e-pharmacy, etc. All those things are written in the e-pharmacy rules. And Indian Medical Association objected to various points in the e-pharmacy because whether it can be used commercially and exploitation of the patients and medical practitioners can happen. Such reservations we have made. And I would just like to mention 2 words about the National Professional Protection Scheme on which I am the secretary. The Professional Protection Scheme is an indemnity scheme by the Indian Medical Association at the national level. It is covering all the doctors regarding litigations up to 20 lakhs per case for 3,000 rupees per year. And there are other, you can take multiple units and even 1 crore coverage for 10,000 rupees is there. And that any of the compensation, legal costs, etc. will be borne by the scheme. And even that difference between the insurance scheme and the professional protection scheme is that an expert of doctors and advocates preparing version for the doctor. Not only the advocate, but a team is working behind. And so there is a better result regarding litigations. And the scheme is also not only taking up consumer cases and civil cases, but even criminal cases regarding practice. And also some of the situations with governmental procedures like clinical, according to Clinical Establishment Act or some other Pollution Control Act, etc. also will be taken up by the Professional Protection Scheme. And it's very important that it's not only the money paid as compensation is important, but also our reputation is also important. So suppose a district court is awarding only 10,000 rupees as compensation. If the organization and the doctor is 100% sure that there is no negligence, then this scheme will fight it up to the Supreme Court. But usually what the insurance companies will do is they will immediately pay out the 10,000 compensation in the case because they don't want to spend much more money for advocate fee in higher courts for this 10,000 compensation. So such cases for the pride of the medical profession can be fought only by the association. I once again thank the Hospital Board of India, all the office bearers here, and all the delegates of this meeting who have attended my talk very patiently. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai IM.
Thank you, JK. It was, as expected, very nice procedural and practical presentation by you about the which documentations hospitals need to keep. Now, there are a few questions, but before that, let us hear to our next speaker, Dr. Dinesh Thackeray, and he is going to cover why this documentation is needed. It's a very important part. Over to you, Dr. Dinesh. Please present your screen sharing is shared with you.
Yes, thank you, sir. Respected National President Dr. Jayalal, sir, HSC Dr. Lele, sir, Secretary of HBI, Dr. Mangesh Pate, our Medical Legal Cell Chairman, Dr. Ravi Shankar, and all others present here. Actually, the topic was so huge, which documentation. and Dr. Jayakrishnan sir has covered it within 40 minutes, I think. And still, he gave justice to the things which were needed and which needed to be focused. Actually, each documentation or each procedure or each act, documentation in each section, it needs a separate lecture. And I discussed with Dr. Pate sir, we as a HBI will be bringing to you procedure wise or act wise which documentation, how to keep all the details. I will start with the documentation as to why we should keep the documentation. Pate sir, am I audible and visible?
Yeah,
Please
yeah. You are visible, you are audible. Go ahead.
Okay. So friends, today's topic is why exactly shall we maintain proper documentation? Now, you all very well know why documentation is important. And Dr. Jayakrishna has just now told us which documentation we should keep. And you should have thought that yes, we know that yes, this document should be kept, this document should be kept. But still, there is some apathy for maintaining proper documentation. And what can be the reasons? Reasons can be found in our apathy in implementation of such other important things in life. Reasons, what can be the reasons? What I have seen and discussed with our seniors and colleagues also. Most of the doctors feel that my patients have full faith in me. I need not bother. I am practicing since so many years, no problem till now. We will handle if any problem comes. Why to bother right from now? Don't get that much efficient staff to maintain the documentation. The benefits are lesser as compared to efforts put in while keeping the proper documentation. It's time consuming. There are no immediate returns. And my colleagues are not so meticulous. And why should only I be so meticulous? Certainly, there is a lack of motivation, determination, and consistency. Why is it so? Let's see. But you can see that sometimes the same members keep good documentation. What are those? Whenever there is a penalty or some punishment, like if someone has recently faced some medical legal case, he will keep all the documentation properly. Then PCP record, MTP record, biomedical waste record, birth record, right? Then hospital registration certificate record related to it, like fire safety, shop act license related record, professional income record. Because if the doctor do not keep these documents properly, there is visible punishment, visible penalty over it. Then there are rewards also. The doctors keep good documentation because of some rewards also, like government schemes, RGBI, like insurance empanelment, research purpose, when they want to present cases in CMEs, in a shared hospitals, and unfortunately in some malpractices. In these cases, for the sake of rewards, some doctors keep good documentation. Now, lastly, some of doctors are self-regulated. Some doctors are inbuilt meticulous in maintaining documents not only in professional capacity but in all walks of life. Some enjoy being meticulous. Some dislike their mistakes being pointed out by the non-medical officers from various authorities. So obviously it seems, what are the reasons to start good documentation? We will have to make ourselves aware of the penalties and punishment for deficient documentation. Most probably, then we will keep proper documentation to avoid it. Then appreciate the benefits. If we know the rewards, then we will keep the documentation. Or lastly, we have to learn to change our mindset and learn to inculcate practice of self-regulation within us. Can we develop the legal compulsions into our habits. Instead of compulsions, can they be habits? Because if it's a habit, then we can say अपनी आदतों के अनुसार चलने में इतनी गलतियां नहीं होती जितना दुनिया का ख्याल और लिहाज रखकर चलने में होती है. कोई इंस्पेक्शन होगा, कोई एनएबीएच वाला आएगा, कोई ऑफिसर आएगा, इसलिए कोई लीगल चीज़ें रखो. इससे अच्छा हो कि अगर आदतें हैं अपनी तो फिर गलतियां नहीं होती. दुनिया का ख्याल और लिहाज रखने में, चलकर रखने में गलतियां होती हैं. So example of penalty or punishment. This is a real example. A senior most respectable OBGYN who has performed thousands of deliveries is facing mental agony, known to me, because of a case filed in 2019. Because she, in 2012, had not done three things. She had not signed a prescription on one of the IPD pages some 7 years back, not taken transfer of consent in writing, and not updated her PG degree with state medical council. And I'm sure that many of us, some of us at least, are facing same issue, like not enrolling or post-graduate degree in state medical council. Then there is another example. In PCPNDT Act, clerical mistake is equal to sex determination. One of the Mumbai radiologists was punished with 1 year imprisonment for not signing the FR. Then in POCSO, documented suspicion of sexual offense but not informed to police is equal to crime. There is 6 months prison imprisonment plus fine. In this case, we follow. Now this is important. What may have instigated government to insert provision of penalty or punishment for doctors in various acts? What are new acts, what are new rules are coming? There is a more stringent, not only penalty, but punishment also. Well, this is the one example. Long years back, many years back, for TB case notification, because they wanted to eradicate TB before 2013, request letters were sent to doctors that please notify TB cases. There was a minimal response. Then what they did, they sent a notification and they said that we will fine you ₹5,000 if you do not notify the TB cases. Still there was a mild response, from minimal to mild. Then the fine was raised to 50,000 for not reporting TB cases. The response was moderate. Now see, application of IPC 269 and 270 came, which included 6 months to 2 years imprisonment and fine. What was the result? Notification percentage raised drastically. This was the story told by a TB person, a national level person to me. And this is the reality. Are we instigating government to raise the penalty and to include the punishments in incoming acts or rules? There is a rule. This is the rule. Find a deficiency of a doctor and punish him. It is the norm. You can see. SC fines 3 doctors for poor handwriting. So use of a good software and higher technology is needed. Again, find a deficiency and punish doctor. Maharaja Agrasen Hospital, New Delhi and others versus Master Rishabh Sharma and others. What it said? Recently, Honorable Supreme Court ordered the hospital to pay compensation of 76 lakhs for negligence as a vicarious liability. What was the fault? Failure to supply medical records in time. Failure to diagnose retinopathy of prematurity as a result of premature baby become blind. For this, they have to pay 76,000. Now, another fact. There is some record detention time. That for that period, you have to keep this record. You have to maintain that record. You have to take care of that record. Do you think following time limitation prescribed for filing a case against you helps? For example, for MTP cases, we have to keep record for 5 years. For PCP-NDT cases, 3 years. For OPD, as per state law or hospital policy. For IPD, 3 years. Medical legal cases, till the final disposal of case. And birth and death record, lifelong with municipality, it is there. For pediatric cases, 18 years of age plus 3 or 4 years more. CPE cases, 2 years. Answer is big no. Because there is a provision, condonation of delay by court. The court condone the delay when an applicant has sufficient cause for not preferring appeal and application. So, solution is digitalize all the record in hard disks and arrange to bury or burn it with you only on your last day. Use a good hospital management software with a separate username and password for each of the users. ITCons should be arranged regularly to understand and implement use of newer and higher technology to tackle the following challenges. What are the challenges? Time consumption for documentation, bad handwriting, keeping track record of the patient, space consumption by medical records, search for record of the particular patient, loss, theft or accidental restriction of record. Now documentation for reward. Why we document for reward? There is one example. The same senior most respectable OBGYN I told you about a few slides back is now confident that all those 3 mistakes and such others will never happen again because her hospital is now NABH entry level certified. She is happy with so much documentation to be maintained for NABH, about which other hospital owners are still unhappy because they didn't have any experience. And these are the other rewards for good documentation given by NABH and other things. Medical sheet confidence and other things. Now, another point. We are allowing anybody to infringe our rights under the behest of improper documentation. And this is the example why intelligent and wise brains in society, like doctors, have to face humiliation by others. See the video and tell me how should have the cat reacted. The cat is having food in her bowl. One mouse came. How should she react? The cat is modern medicine doctors and the rat is all infringing their rights. What should have cat done? How should have cat reacted? Cat just didn't react. Now, another example. This dog is intimidating. He will take action against the lion for poor documentation. How should the lion react? See the video. Is that what we are going to do? Don't allow any Tom, Dick and Harry to humiliate you just because you are poor in documentation. So what are the solutions? Continue fight to repeal unnecessary documentation. My answer is I will do. Dr. Pate is there, he will do. HBI is there, he will do. They will do. No, at the grassroots level, you have to start to fight to repeal such unnecessary documentation because at the end, you are the victims. Second is efforts to bring in better documentation that will save us and save. We are not against patients. So we want better documentation which will save us also and will be in favor of patients also. Till then, this is very much important. Till then, follow at least compulsory documentation whichever is compulsory. And lastly, learn how to do it happily with minimum stress. For that, we have to self-regulate ourselves. It's a better way to maintain good documentation and to manage related stress. That is self-regulation. Self-regulation or change in mindset can be easily learned. It brings out discipline within us. It sends contagious positive waves to the surrounding. We become a role model for our colleagues and employees. Honesty and urge to be a better and more evolved human being is the key. Now another thing. In following examples I will be giving, honestly ask each one of you, honestly ask yourself at which of the given level you are today. There are 5 levels given. Just see at which level you are today and then practice the given upper level in day-to-day practice. You may feel that how this is related to hospital documentation that I will explain in 2 minutes. Just to go through. Now let's see traffic rules. Traffic rules. Thought process level and behavior. First level is traffic rules. What is this? I don't bother. Second level, I follow traffic rules in the presence of police only. This is second level. Third level is I follow traffic rules to protect my image in society or under the pressure of fellow commuters. This is the third level. Now see at which level you are today. You are, each one of you, myself also, is today. Fourth, I follow traffic rules most of the time. I strictly follow those traffic rules, violation of which causes trouble to others. Right? In last higher stages, I follow all traffic rules all the time. I motivate others to do so. So we'll say that doctor, whether the level one persons exist in this world or leave it, whether level 5 persons exist in this world. Let's see. Do you think that level 1 persons in this traffic rule don't exist? See, this is traffic rules following. What is this? The driver is saying, what traffic rules? What is this? I don't bother about traffic rules. This is the police personnel. The driver is just. So this is a level 1 person. Now level 5. There are level 5 people also in the world. Let's see. There is a cow coming on the road and the vehicles behind are not crossing the 2 yellow lines because it is not allowed. Can this happen in India? There is a 1 or 2 kilometer line behind. No one is crossing the yellow line. So this is the level 5 regulation, self-regulation in traffic rules. Just go for such levels for cleanliness. First level is cleanliness. What is this? I don't bother. Second, I maintain cleanliness whenever there is a chance of getting caught or penalized. Only when then I will maintain cleanliness. I maintain cleanliness to protect my image in society or under the pressure of fellow citizens. Fourth, I maintain cleanliness most of the time. I strictly maintain that sort of cleanliness, ignorance of which causes trouble to others. Fifth is I maintain cleanliness all the time and I motivate others to do so. So, believe me, persons exhibiting each level of all these do exist. But to implement the given upper level of the thought process and convert it into behavior, we have to do conscious, deliberate efforts wisely, not like this man. The change we need to bring in us is here. So let's learn to self-regulate. But how is all this related to hospital documentation? Let's see. First, honestly ask yourself again, at which of the given level you are today as far as hospital documentation is concerned. Now, correlate this with the levels of traffic rule and levels of cleanliness. Then actively practice the given upper level in day-to-day practice, and that will give you the reasons why we should maintain a good documentation. Now again, thought process level and behavior. First is, I don't bother about documentation at all. Now you will say, tell us the examples. Some doctors practicing in tribal areas, some doctors confidence of no litigations against them, some Bahubali doctors, and other examples are illiterate people, tribal people, habitually intoxicated persons and criminals. They just don't bother about any documentation. Second is others maintain documentation for. In hospital, I am talking hospital documentation. Examples, some lady doctors sharing hospital with husband or some visiting doctors. Some doctors working in government hospitals. Then head of a unit in a hospital on a higher administrative post. Who maintain their documentation? Others. Most common example is surgeons and anesthetists. Pre-anesthesia workup, post-anesthesia workup. Most of the time, anesthetists write notes of surgeon. So that is others maintain documentation for me. It is the usual example we see. And other examples in life are tribal people up to whom government machinery has reached, and illiterate persons on criminal on higher post. For them, others maintain documentation. Now, third one, I maintain highly necessary documents only. Most of us fall in this level and this category, and this comes under reward and punishment category. Examples are some doctors renewal of or NABH assessment of whose hospital is due. You can see those doctor following all maintaining all necessary documents because NABH assessment is due. Some doctors running NABH certified hospitals or running some government health schemes or having an apprehension of some litigation or who have already faced minor litigations or penalty. Other examples are some frequent travelers, some vehicle owners, and some business. And we do keep entry pass, parking slip, coupon for banquet, right? In our conferences. We maintain that. So fourth one is I maintain maximum possible documentation. I strictly maintain those documentation deficiency in which may cause inconvenience to patients. Like some sensitive doctors who have faced litigations or humiliation by authorities or who are working in small corporate hospitals. In other walks of life, persons working in middle judiciary, low-cost airlines, vehicle dealership, and three-star hotels, they maintain this level of documentation. Now, level 5 people also exist in this world. I am perfect at documentation and I deliberately make it known to others. I motivate others for the same. Examples are some doctors working in big corporate hospitals or in NABH fully accredited NABH hospitals, and they motivate others through their behavior, through their counseling sessions, webinars, and posters. And examples in other walks of life is persons working in highest judiciary, high-cost airlines, armed forces, and 5 and 5th or 7-star hotels. There you can see this sort of behavior regarding documentation. So now these are the 5 levels. My question to you is just see where you are and try to maintain or upgrade to the next level. Now, smart documentation is another thing. How many of us completely read the loan agreement or insurance document or swimming pool joining form or water sports consent form or instruments AMC or CMC contract with a multinational company before signing it? Though we know that we are liable for each clause written in it, still we don't read. Can we get consent signed by patient in the similar way? Not possible. If we tell him about complications of a simple injection or a blood transfusion, medication, normal delivery, surgery, and then request him to give consent, he will definitely go to the other doctor in the city. He will prefer a quack who claims to cure without any side effects every disease on this earth. And laws of this land will be behind us to put us behind bars if we fail to take proper or complete or informed consent, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, we are always at the crossroads. And then, unfortunately, most of the time, we choose to be deficient in the documentation rather than losing the patient. That is the reality. In this medically illiterate, political, violent society, and the same lawmakers, and again the hostile surrounding of media, public, police, rulers, judiciary, and some members of our own fraternity. Let me repeat, some members of our own fraternity. The most intelligent brains in such a society must learn smart documentation. Jaisa desh, vaisa bhesh. Speak the language these people understand. Give them what they deserve, not what we want to give them. There is some शायरी by अल्लामा इकबाल. खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. I will not explain it because lack of time. Sorry for those who don't understand Hindi. Now I have made some modification in this. खुदी को कर कलमी मजबूत इतना, that is perfect in documentation, कि हर फैसले से पहले हर एक साहब means either judicial person or government official or medical council official or police, कि हर एक साहब तबीब से खुद पूछे अब तू ही बता कि तेरी खता क्या है. That is the modification done by. what is the answer to this? Doctor answers to this. खता तो मैंने बहुत बड़ी की है, मरीज के पहले अपना गिरेबान बचाया है, मुकम्मल इलाज करने इस्तेमाल करना है मेरा जहन दिमाग, वो मैंने ये कागजात को मुकम्मल बनाने में लगाया है. बड़ा दुखी है डॉक्टर. हे अल्फाजों के सरदार, तुम नहीं दे सकते मुझे इस खता की सजा, क्योंकि 100 बका एक लिखा अमल करने को तुमने ही मुझे मजबूर किया. यह अंधा कानून है जो मरीज को ही नुकसान पहुंचाता है. शायर डॉक्टर दिनेश ठाकुर. So take home messages in single line is that better proper documentation is directly proportional to higher self-respect. Better proper documentation is directly proportional to the higher self-respect. No value to what I said, but what I wrote. Things done but not written means not done. Things accurately done but wrongly written means wrongly done. I repeat, things accurately done but wrongly written means wrongly done. And most important, things wrongly done or not done at all but flawlessly written means perfectly done. This is reality, my friends, in today's world, in our judiciary. Then treat each and every patient as a potential litigant and behave accordingly. Document everything that you communicate, but wisely and smartly communicate what you document. Your safety first. This is the message from this society, this violent society to us. Make the process of documentation deliberately obvious to the patient. Make the process of documentation deliberately obvious to the patient, rather make him a part of it. Irritate him like aeroplane staff, Swachh Bharat song playing every day. Tell him loudly that government and laws of land have made this documentation tedious and they are responsible for this irritation caused to you. Use newer and higher technology to aid process of documentation. Try to be a tech-savvy doctor. Learn technique of inculcating self-regulation. Be a role model for your staff, that is, be the change you want to see in others. Reward the staff who is improving in documentation maintenance. Raise your OPD fee by ₹20, that is surcharge. Expend ₹10 each on improving and practically implementing documentation and communication skills. Tell yourself 5 times a day that I will try my best today to implement upper level of the given thought process regarding documentation and communication to further reduce chance of litigation or verbal abuse or violence on me. What is levels of communication? I'll just tell in a minute. Therefore, enjoy job satisfaction and sleep in peace daily. These are the 5 levels I already told to you. I will just go through the levels of the communication. First level doctor, mine is the last word in my hospital. Second level doctor, staff informs patient about what is going on. Third level doctor, I do highly necessary counseling only, which comes under reward punishment category. Fourth level doctor, I do maximum possible interaction with patient. I strictly ensure that that part of counseling is done properly, deficiency in which may cause inconvenience to the patient. This is the fourth level doctor. Now see the fifth level doctor. There is a strong two-way communication and easy redressal mechanism in place in my hospital. I motivate others to do for the same. And remember that all those sections of this society shall also self-regulate who authoritatively advise doctor to do so. The way forward is, if we take ready-made food for a long journey, it will last for a few days. But if we learn to prepare food from all sorts of raw material, we can enjoy the journey lifelong without the stress of where to get the ready-made food, which raw material I need, where will I get it, how to prepare food from it. Similarly, now you will start having questions. What documentation shall I maintain? Where will I get the standard formats? How to fill in the documents to be safe? What are procedure-specific documents? What are acts or rule-specific documents? If you have questions, you will definitely find the answers too. After all, let me remind you, you are the wisest and most intelligent brains of this society. All the best. Thank you.
Excellent, Dr. Dinesh Thakre. As expected, what you have given a message of a self-regulation. I remember in most of the meetings of the Hospital Board of India, when we were always used to discuss, Dr. Dinesh Thakre was a part of it, Dr. JK was a part of it, Dr. T.N. Ravishankar was a part of it, and we always have discussed one very common point, that whenever we deal with the quality of the healthcare, what is the most important hydran in this quality development is our mindset. And removing that hydrants and improving our mindset is the most important thing in today's world. So the same thing, the message has been given by both the speakers. Now, first question, which has come very important, is to Dr. Jayakrishnan. The answer will be slightly long, but I'll request JK to be short and answer this question. The question is the effects of the digital health record, which is being launched by the government of India on the small and mid-sector hospitals.
Yes, it's a very important question because presently the small and mid-sector hospital does not, most of the hospital does not run electronic medical records. Converting into electronic medical records will be highly cost intensive. One thing is the medical software itself is costly. Second thing is our doctors are not very much illiterate to operate such medical software. Not only doctors and other healthcare workers. So they will require assistance from a transcriptionist, physician assistants, etc. So appointing such persons will be also slightly costly. So the thing is that initially it will be a bit cost intensive for small hospitals, and it can be problematic if it's made compulsory. But more useful interfaces, more e-literacy among doctors, more the government has also to provide the basic platform free of cost, so that these things can be done. In such situations, it can be helpful because the prescriptions will be more easy, record keeping will be more easy, and in such situations, ultimately, it can help in the future.
Okay. I think that will be the answer as far as the procedural way out, while going parallel with the government plan to have a digital health mission as far as healthcare is concerned. But definitely this will have certain legal implications also as compared to the today's practicing world, and what is going to be after this digital health record comes. So we need to address that also, legal implications of the same, I think. So JK, can you speak on this legal implications of this?
Yeah, legal implications. There are certain legal implications regarding digital health record. One is every encounter in the digital area is logged. That is, there will be an evidence that there is a interference. Suppose I am correcting some entry after 3 weeks. If you go to the log file, it will be specifically written that I have corrected this entry at this particular point of time. So it is very easy for any of the experts to find out what all manipulations or what all corrections you have done to the record. That is one of the important issue. Another issue is regarding consents. Now we usually take a physical consent. To take a digital consent, there should be an appropriate interface, and how that interface can be worked out. All these things are not very clear because that will require some authentication like Aadhaar or authentication by fingerprints, etc. So that area we have to work up. So consent is another legal area. And another area which may affect is regarding loss of data. There are certain situations, especially regarding electronic medical records in institutions, due to server failures and other things. If you lose your data, then that may be catastrophic. So there should be some system in which you have to duplicate this electronic medical records in servers outside the institution, etc., which will be also cost effective. These are some of the main legal implications. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Dinesh Thakre, there is one question by Dr. Viren Shah. He is asking that are these digital medical records legal?
Yes, there are some rules, like I told during the presentation, that there are such softwares, as Dr. Jayakrishnan told, that everything is recorded, everything is noted. Similarly, there should be separate password and username for each entrant. May it be sister, may it be reception, may it be doctor. If this is kept properly, the digital medical record is legal. Rather, in coming days, everything is digitalized, like Dr. Jayakrishnan told about national mission. So therefore, all such digital medical records are legal, provided the rules are followed. Like same happens in with telemedicine also.
Okay, okay. There is one very important practical question, Dr. Dinesh Thakre. It is about the consent, informed consent. Many hospitals, there are different formats of consent. Many a times, the staff is asked to write the consent and take the signatures from the patient, informing them what is written in that consent. Second, doctor himself writes. Third, patient is asked to write in the informed way what they understand in their own wording and handwriting. Fourth is, certain hospitals do have one common consent in a stamped format. Like you have to take a patient for appendectomy or a cesarean section, these common surgeries, they have got a stamps, ready-made stamps that I am giving consent to undergo the cesarean section or appendectomy or so and so surgery or whatever treatment. And fifth way is the printed consent common. Okay. So which is the right way to take informed consent from the patient and from the relatives?
This is the now common question after Dr. Kantikar sir gave verdict in a recent case regarding that, saying that the printed format or ready-made consent is a high-handedness of the hospital, and it's not done. What he meant to say that ready-made fixed printed consent for any procedure is not acceptable. And now OBGY, I have seen OBGYNs, they are they are preparing consents which are procedure specific. So if in simple way, I would like to say that the blanket consent, the printed consent should be avoided unless it is general. The consent should be procedure specific and it should be in the language of the patient, which the patient understands. Because many times I have seen the consent is in English or in Marathi in Maharashtra, but patient don't understand both the things. And as far as possible, the things which can be written by the patients, they should be allowed to written by them, so that it is the proof that they themselves have written. Because on later date, the patient may say that, or relative may say that this is not my signature, but the handwriting can be matched. So as far as possible, be procedure specific, avoid common printed consents unless and until it is general.
Okay. There is a last question. There are few doctors who are joining these HBI webinars. They are from the government sector also. So they have got a question for both the speakers. that we work in the government sector and there is a huge patient load. So whatever guidelines you are giving us, which documentation and why documentation. So while working in the government sector, how shall we comply with these guidelines given by you? Because patient load is very high. Secondly, not all government setups, they do provide the basic required formats of the documentation as being told by both the speakers. So what to do in that scenario? First, this question to Dr. JK, followed by which Dr. Dinesh Thakur. JK, please.
The first statement I would like to say is that none of the authorities or the legal fora will accept the excuse that it was due to the high volume or high rush that I have done in negligence. So it can never be an excuse that this has happened because for that particular patient, that rush or service to other patient, etc., does not matter. So it's a very tricky situation because all these documentations have to be completed even if it's a government institution, private institution, etc. Second thing, earlier the litigations in government institutions were less compared to private institutions. But now what happens is the litigations in government institutions is gaining momentum, and now it has increased very much. Litigations, assaults, violence, everything is more in the government institution. This is due to two things. One is due to the rush and high turnover. Second is due to lack of infrastructure and manpower. But that cannot be excuse in any of the legal fora. All these documentation have to be completed, whether it's private or government. And these minimum documentation should be the aim. And as I understand, the government also has some initiatives like some certifications which are given by the government of India even for small hospitals for complying with such documentation standards and some of the standards. So it is better you see the patients you can with the appropriate documentation other than see maximum patient without documentation or other things, because that may land you in trouble. Thank you.
Dr. Dinesh,
I
you
will
want to
say
add?
that why this question is coming, because doctors, when you are on duty, if there are 20 patients, you have 2 hours to see. You will see 20 patients in 2 hours. Now the number increases to 50. You still see 50 patients in 1 hour, 2 hours. And if the number increases to 100, you still see 100 patients in the 2 hours, because you want to give justice to the patients. But as Dr. J.K. sir said, that the court will not excuse you. So you should not excuse anybody also, not the hooligans, not the politician, not the CS or the administrator. Because when the case will be there, no one will be come to you. So you continue with your speed. Because there are 100 patients, you don't finish them within the 2 hours. It's not possible. And because you can see 20 patients, 50 patients in 2 hours only, let the people go to the higher authorities. Okay, please give us more doctors, please open more OPDs, please give more staff. The patients should go to the doctor, to the authorities, to the administrators. They don't go because they get the service. Let them not get the service, and still you do your job. If each patient is satisfied, that doctor is looking at his patient with giving due time, and he is not at fault, they will not scold you or will be behind you. They will go to the other administrators. And as JK sir said, you always tell to the patient or administrator also, yes sir, you are saying me, you are asking me, requesting me to see the 100 patients, and if anything happens, will you help me? Will the patient help me? Will the hooligans help me? Ask these questions. And if you go on doing it, you will go on doing it. If you stop doing it, you will at least give justice to yourself. And as I said, your safety first. No one will come.
Dinesh, the one hidden meaning in this question was, does the doctors, healthcare professionals in the government setups have legal immunity as far as documentation is concerned?
No
No,
legal
sir.
immunity. No legal immunity.
Exactly, that was the meaning
The
behind this.
immunity is very much defined. Whatever who is deficient. If there is some structural deficiency, fire deficiency, some administrative deficiency, then the hospital is liable. If you are deficient in clinical diagnosis, giving treatment, writing drugs, you are liable. And when you see 100 patients instead of 20 in 2 hours, you will definitely make a mistake.
And even consumer cases can be charged on government doctors, because although consumer cases are for paid services, actually, if any of the service in that institution is paid, then it is considered as a paid service. So suppose a hospital managing committee is charging 2 rupees per visitor or 1 rupee for an OP card, then that hospital is doing a paid service. So any service of that hospital except of that national programs like immunization, sterilization program, except that everything will come under Consumer Protection Act also in government hospitals, even if the services are free.
Okay, okay. There is one last question just now, it has come. In certain states, for example, Gujarat Clinical Establishment Act, they ask to maintain the records for 10 years, which is not practical. So can we quote the records which is to be maintained as mentioned by Dr. Dinesh Thakre? So,
No, sir.
Dinesh,
Who is he? Dr. Viren Shah. Sir, I
yeah.
talked about the condonation of delay. My advice is that burn or bury the record with you only. And then comes the question how to keep. Digitalization, scanning, all these things are now available. It's not a problem now. And if it is, even if had it not be possible, I will say somehow keep it, because it is the record only who will save you. And the limitation period given has no meaning, because the court can give condonation of delay even after 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. So therefore, don't go for this option. Go for only one thing, that I will bury and burn my record with me only.
Okay. I think we are done with questions. No more questions are there. It was a very nice presentation by Dr. Jayakrishnan and Dr. Dinesh Thakre, both
Just
experts.
excuse me, sir. I will like to have a comment from Dr. Ravi Shankar, sir.
Yes, yes. I will request Dr. Ravi Shankar sir to comment on the today's webinar.
He is our guide to for in our medical cell. All the things we are doing under him.
Yes. Dr. Ravi Shankar.
Thank you, sir. If I have not got a chance to speak today, I would not have slept. Just fabulous. One man was talking because of his vast clinical experience, Dr. J. Krishnan. I think he's not only a man who had done service for the through IMA, the medical community, but today he has shown to everybody that he is a clinical man. That is why he is able to correlate things, what is happening in the legal forum. Fantastic, sir. Thank you very much, Jay Kishan, sir. And that too, taking the stage of trying to tell us on telemedicine, teledocumentation. Only thing he missed was telenursing. That's all. Probably it is reserved for his next one. Fabulous, excellent talk, sir. And whatever he said, if it has been followed, I don't think we'll have a problem in the court. A good documentation is an excellent defense in the court. And I have already put the comment. Dinesh is a different kind of a thinker and speaker, a man who talks on self-regulation, more than trying to talk on the legal issues. And number 5, he's number 5, the one who motivates us, has really given us an excellent talk on how we have to change ourselves, the change that has to happen in ourselves. And that is what he has told it. I don't think I need to add anything on any of these topics. Only thing, even after your death, you can't bury your records. You can carry on your legal hire. I think it is there in a case that is running against a doctor and incomplete, it gets transferred. If he is running a hospital and if he's a doctor, it can go to the next generation. You can't bury your documents along with you. It still has to carry on. And fantastic talks are great. The time Mangesh has choosing the 2 speakers, I think he deserves a big applause for that. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ravi Shankar. So friends, this was our webinar 5 from IMA Hospital Board of India. Today, our national chairman could not join because he underwent a surgery a few days back. Now he's absolutely fine. And next Friday, definitely he will be with us in this webinar. I'm very thankful to Dr. Jayakrishnan and Dr. Dinesh Thakre for their exclusive talk on the documentation, and I am 100% sure the entire fraternity will be at benefit because of today's webinar. This webinar was telecasted live on the IMA Hospital Board of India YouTube channel and Indian Medical Association headquarters Facebook page, and it is going to remain there forever. So those who could not attend this webinar, they can take advantage and watch it over there. All of you, I am very thankful to our National President, our Secretary General, and all the friends and colleagues who joined over here on this webinar. Next Friday, Indian Medical Association HBI will come out with the new topic, practical topic, which will be in the interest of the safeguarding the hospital owners, guiding the doctors, how to do the safe practice, how to do the quality practice, which is what Hospital Board of India is bid for. So again, before signing off, I thank each one of you over there, including Dr. Jayakrishnan, Dr. Dinesh Thakre, Dr. T.N. Ravishankar, all senior leaders, my colleagues, friends, IMEans over here. Thank you. Good night. See you next Friday.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you, everybody.